I'm glad that everyone was able to get lunch. I think everybody was able to get lunch. Was lunch good? Good. Well, my name is Julie Evans, if I haven't already had the chance to meet you. I am the Chief Executive Officer of Project Tomorrow, and I do want to welcome you to this year's Speak Up briefing on our student data. Those of you that are familiar with our Speak Up briefings know that we do a couple of these each year. This one is particularly focused in on our data findings from students. We'll have a subsequent one which will look at the views of teachers and parents and administrators. But our focus today is on the students. So what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be giving you a little bit of an introduction to Speak Up, just in case you are not familiar with it. And then we have a wonderful guest speaker who I will be introducing in just a couple moments. And then I'll share with you some highlights from this year's national release. Now, you each received a packet of information that included the report for this year's Speak Up findings from students. It's also, of course, available on our website to download. So I'll be sharing with you not the whole report. Don't worry, we're not going to be here for hours going over line item by line item of the report, but just a couple highlights from the report. And then my absolutely favorite part of doing these briefings is that we're going to have the opportunity to hear directly from students about what their thoughts are on digital learning, technology, the idea of using technology in school and out of school, and also about their future. And so that is my absolute favorite part. And I promise you we'll save some time for your questions, because I know that you'll have questions for the panel as well. So just a little bit of housekeeping things here. Is there anyone here that this is your first time coming to a Speak Up briefing? So a couple folks, welcome. It's nice to have you here. How about the flip of that question? How about folks that have been here more than once? Okay. Maybe even more than twice. Nice crowd. More than 3 times. Okay, crowd's getting a little bit smaller, but I see some favorites. I know that you folks have been here before. And I was talking with my friends. We're going to be meeting some students that are here from Baltimore City Schools. And this is our 12th time doing a Speak Up briefing for student data. And every single one of those 12 times we've done a briefing here on the Hill, our good friends from Baltimore City Public Schools have been here and have had the opportunity to bring students with them as well. So thrilled to have them here today. So in case you are a Twitterer or you have a mobile device and would like to do some tweeting during the event, we do have our regular handle is Speak Up Ed, as well as we have a special hashtag set up, Speak Up Briefing. So please feel free to do that as well. Now, just in case you hadn't noticed, for those of us that are here in the room in Washington, D.C., we also are doing a live video stream of this event today. So welcome to all of our Speak Up friends and family around the world that are here with us today as well. So let me tell you a little bit about the students that are here with us. I already mentioned that our good friends are here from Baltimore City Schools, from the Empowerment Academy, and we have 4 students that are going to be on our panel as well. And then we have a couple students that are here from Key Middle School, which is part of Fairfax County Public Schools in Virginia, and welcome them to have the opportunity to be here. And then our good friends from the Cesar Chavez Public Charter School for Public Policy here in Washington, D.C. are here, and they have provided us with students in the past as well, and so it's wonderful to have them here representing the Tiger Woods Learning Center. I also want to thank Senator Patty Murray for helping us get this beautiful room today. It is quite lovely. And then also want to draw attention to the fact that in the report you can learn about Speak Up if you're not familiar with it, as well as some of those key findings that we're going to be sharing. So in case you're not familiar with Project Tomorrow, we are a national education nonprofit group. We're particularly interested in students' learning experiences, both in school and out of school, and how digital tools, resources, and content can impact that. We have a particular interest in STEM education and how STEM resources can impact students' futures as well. The Speak Up Research Project is conducted every year with the idea of collecting the authentic feedback from K-12 students, teachers, their parents, as well as administrators, and for the last 2 years, we've also been polling community members. It's an unusual research project because we allow any K-12 school or district, public, private, independent, charter, magnet, virtual, any flavor that there might be out there, to use our online surveys In exchange, we give them back their localized data to use for their local plans. So first and foremost, Speak Up is a service opportunity for schools and districts to learn about the authentic feedback of their stakeholders. We take the national data and share it with all of you today in this report, as well as many other reports that are available on our website as well. I'm very pleased to tell you that we hit a very significant milestone this year. We have collected since 2003 about 4 million surveys through the Speak Up mechanism, so quite a body of data about students' authentic views on digital learning. Thank you, Pat Teskey, for the little applause. As well as the opportunity to not only look at current year data, but also longitudinal data, and I brought some of that with me here today as well. I also, of course, want to thank my good partners and sponsors that are with us today as well. Angela Baker is here from Qualcomm Wireless Reach. I know that we have several other partners that are here in the room as well. In addition to that, we also work very closely with the education associations, and several of our partners are here as well. I know Kari is here from the Flip Learning Network. Jonathan is here from iNACOL, and Craig is here from ISTE, which is wonderful to have you all. Some other folks may have come in as well. But we really rely upon the wonderful outreach work that our partners help us with to make sure schools and districts know about the Speak Up opportunity. So in terms of the data that we'll be sharing today and what's included in the report, it is from Speak Up from last fall. So the online surveys were open from about the beginning of October to the middle of December. And last year we had over 521,000 students, teachers, parents, and administrators complete the online survey, sharing with us their authentic views on the state of digital learning in their learning lives. Just a little bit of a sort of informational thing, and you'll find out as we spend the day together, not the whole day, but part of the day together, is I'm quite a data geek. So the statistics matter to me. We had about a 30% increase in participation from 2013 to 2014 in terms of Speak Up surveys submitted. Those surveys came from about 8,200 schools, 2,600 districts, representing all types of communities, not only in the United States, but actually around the world as well. We had a very significant partnership this year with the Department of Defense schools, so had students on American military bases all over the world also sharing their views. So a couple key trends from the data that I thought would be interesting to sort of start out with, just so that you have a context around this. These are things that seem interesting to us and are really guiding our work at this point as we think about the data analysis. We definitely have seen, and you're probably all part of it because you're here today, an increased sense of urgency around how to effectively use digital tools and content to be able to impact student learning. That's not to say that a couple years ago folks weren't interested in that. It just seems to have come a little bit more front and center, particularly for many school leaders. We also found that there's a range of different types of models. There isn't a one-size-fits-all. There isn't one recipe for implementing digital learning, particularly to personalize learning. So whether that's around mobile or blended or flipped or fully virtual or some hybrid of all of those, it's been very interesting to see schools and districts work through how to effectively use that. As part of that, we're seeing more and more use of digital content, and we'll be talking about that today as well. And of course, as I mentioned before, we're very interested in STEM resources, and so the linkage between STEM resources and making sure that today's youth are well prepared for college success, future career and job success, to be good citizens of the world is also something that's very important to us. And as I mentioned before, this really increased focus not only on the sense of urgency around digital learning, but also about how do we leverage the power, the immense potential of these tools to really personalize learning is something that we're seeing more and more coming through the data. So we know that sometimes, particularly around digital learning, we may look at something and say, well, that's a good example of personalized learning. So we may see it as that, but maybe we really don't know what's going on with it. Or maybe we think we know about the use of digital content, online textbooks, videos, maybe interesting animations or simulations, but maybe we don't see it happening in our schools and districts. So it may be a perception problem, or it may be that we're still learning how to truly view digital learning within the right perspective. So it may be a little bit like this picture, and you may be able to see different things in this picture. So some of you may look at this picture and you may see the woman walking with the swooshy skirt in the leaves, and some of you may see a very prominent looking face with a strong kind of patrician nose looking out at it. So how many people see the woman walking with the swooshy skirt in the leaves? Okay? How many people see the prominent face with the nose? Okay? Do people see both of them? Some people see both of them. Well, this is really interesting because it's the same sort of thing that we're seeing with digital learning. Sometimes people see it from different perspectives. And one of the immense value that we think we provide with the Speak Up data is the opportunity for you as policymakers, school leaders, district leaders, program developers, folks that are involved with education associations, the opportunity to gain all of these different perspectives, to hear from the students, to hear from the teachers, to hear what the parent point of view is, to hear what the administrator point of view is. Now, we also know sometimes folks might say that without data, all you are is a person with an opinion. Now, when we think about particularly impacting policy and putting in place new programs, making school investments around digital learning, we don't really want to rely just on opinion. We really want to have that basis be in the Speak Up data, because that data does give you the opportunity to really hear from your stakeholders, to understand the trends, and to be able to impact plans going forward. So at this point, I'm first going to call up our students to join us up here. Students, could you come up? Come join us up at your seats. And while they're doing that, I'm very pleased to introduce to you a very special friend of ours who is going to share some remarks with you. So Jessica Rosenwarsel, sorry, was nominated for a seat on the Federal Communications Commission by President Obama in May 2012 and was confirmed unanimously by the United States Senate. She was sworn into office on May 11, 2012. She brings to this position a decade and a half of public sector and private sector communications law experience, which is obviously incredibly valuable in the work that she's doing. I've gotten to know Jessica and her team over the last couple of years, and I will add to that very brief biography, though you have more detail in your packets, that she also is a tireless advocate for ensuring that our nation's children have equitable learning opportunities. And so I am quite grateful not only for her leadership, but also for the opportunity that she's taken to join us today to share some of her thoughts. So Jessica, please come up and join us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Julie. Thank you to Speak Up, Project Tomorrow, and Project Tomorrow is at the table right now, so thank you to our students from Baltimore who are here. And I've also brought a little bit of my own Project Tomorrow. My son Emmett is sleeping in the back on the floor. Some days go like this. First of all, let me congratulate you on this terrific digital learning report. The research you've done is so important. And your data tells this very clear story about the way that education and technology are coming together. Now, of course they are, because take one look at the world around us. We've gone wireless, and no matter what we do, so much of our lives now are expressed in the universal digital vocabulary of zeros and ones. Now, this is a far cry from the world that I knew when I was growing up, and roughly the same age of everyone sitting here. Because when I was growing up, homework required nothing more than your siblings leaving you alone, a clear workspace, and a number 2 pencil. No more. Today, as many as 7 in 10 teachers assign homework that requires access to the internet and broadband. But where I work, at the Federal Communications Commission, we have data that suggests that as many as 1 in 3 households in this country do not subscribe to broadband. So let's think about those numbers. Because where they overlap is what I call the homework gap. And it's what I want to talk a little bit more about today. Because as your report notes, nearly half of all educational technology leaders are concerned about student access to the internet outside of school. In fact, they cite it as one of their most challenging issues this year. And their concern is spot on. Because according to statistics released by the Pew Research Center just last week, the homework gap is real. There are 5 million households of the 29 million households in this country with school-aged children that are falling into this gap and do not have access to broadband at home. So, let's imagine for a moment that you're a student in a household without internet access and broadband. Just getting your basic schoolwork done is hard. Applying for a scholarship is pretty challenging. And while low-income families are adopting smartphones with internet access at high rates, let me submit to you that a phone is just not how you want to research and type a paper, apply for jobs, or further your education. We can do better than this, and teachers know we need to. After all, your study shows that they are worried about equity issues that come with bring-your-own-device learning models. That's because students who lack regular access to broadband are struggling to keep up. They see it. And their lack of access is actually holding our education system back. In fact, again, according to the Pew Research Center, more than half of teachers in low-income communities have said that their students' lack of access to online resources at home presents a major challenge for integrating technology into their teaching. So that's a problem, because 1/2 of all jobs today require some level of digital skills. And by the end of the decade, that number will be 77%. School-aged kids without broadband access at home are not only unable to complete their homework, they enter the job market with a serious handicap. And that loss is more than individual. It's a loss to our collective human capital and our shared economic future that we need to address. So, if my soapbox statistics don't make this clear, maybe some stories will. So let's imagine for a moment Citronelle, Alabama. It's hot. It's a city of 4,000 people, and it takes you less than an hour to get there from Mobile. After school in Citronelle, students head to McDonald's. They head to a fast food restaurant because it is one of the few places in town with regular access to Wi-Fi. So students who do not have broadband at home hunker down in the booths to do their homework. They research and write their papers, nursing a fizzy drink, and doing it all with a side of fries. Now, in Pinconning, Michigan, where it's a little colder by Saginaw Bay, there's a fast food franchisee who says he can tell when exams are coming up in the local school district. That's because students without online access file into his restaurant with their laptops in tow. And those who can't afford food or drink from the menu simply sit outside in the parking lot to do their work. And then there are parents who drive them there, doing what they can on limited incomes to make sure that their children just get a bit of the connectivity they need to be competent in school. In Cutler Bay, Florida, which is just south of Miami, there are parents of kids who lack broadband at home, and they shuffle nightly into the local library. Then they queue up for computers to get their children time online to do their homework every night. Now, the lines are long, and the wait lines and time, it's kind of tough. But the need's real, because there are actually Miami-Dade County high schools that use digital history textbooks. And there are elementary schools in the same district that have math programs that are online. And you know, those students in Alabama, Michigan, and Florida are actually the lucky ones. They might not have broadband at home, but with grit, ingenuity, and the help of their parents, they found ways to cobble together the connectivity they need to get their schoolwork done. But it's hard. Earlier this year, the Southern Education Foundation published some bone-chilling statistics. They found that for the first time in our nation's history, more than half the students in public school are now from low-income households. Across the board, every bit of data, statistics, and study suggests those are households least likely to subscribe to broadband. And from where I sit, that's a clarion call. The homework gap is going to get worse unless we take steps to bridge this new digital divide. So, what can we do? There's no one single silver bullet or quick fix. It's a hard problem. And it's going to take a lot of cooperative effort and a bunch of creative ideas. So here are some of mine. First, at the FCC, where I work, we have a program called Lifeline. It's a program that got its start 3 decades ago, back in 1985. Not all of you here will remember 1985, but that's when most communications involved a cord. And President Ronald Reagan was in the White House. It was a long time ago. And today, that Lifeline program supports telephone access in 14 million low-income households in every state all across the country. But it needs a reboot. We need to modernize it. Instead of having the program only support voice service, we should allow participants to choose between applying the same support to either voice service or broadband service. And that simple change would both update the program and help bring more broadband to low-income households all across the country, especially those with students. Second idea, we need more Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is an essential on-ramp to internet connectivity. More than half of us have relied at some point on public Wi-Fi to get online. But for many low-income households, it's their only means of getting online. So having more spectrum reserved for Wi-Fi and more Wi-Fi in more places will mean more opportunities for students to get their homework done. Third, we need to keep tabs on some innovative and cool programs for broadband access that are happening right now all across the country. In New York, for instance, the public library has a pilot program that lends out wireless hotspots. Now, last I checked, they've been loaned out in New York City's Manhattan branch and in the Brooklyn Library 1,700 times. And think about what that hotspot can mean for a student who needs online access to complete their schoolwork. It's the difference between keeping up in class and falling behind. In California, the Coachella School District superintendent got really innovative. Now, Coachella is probably best known for a music festival that happens in every April, but I'm not talking about that. Because in fact, it's a community that is organized around agriculture. There's a lot of citrus fruit and tomatoes that are grown in the Coachella Valley in California's vast inland empire. And in the school district, more than half of the students are not fluent in English. They come from Spanish-speaking homes, and many of their parents are migrant farm workers. But when the school superintendent came up with a program to give every student a tablet for use at school and home, he found he had a problem. He thought he was introducing those students to a world beyond the farming in their backyard. But what he found instead was that the students were sitting on the floor by his office every night as late as 6 p.m., tapping on their devices because it was one of the only reliable places they could get the signal they needed to do their homework. His students were, in essence, falling into that homework gap. But he came up with a really neat way to get them out. He installed Wi-Fi routers on some of the buses in the school district. Because in this rural area, most students traveled an hour into school every day and then an hour back home at night. And he concluded he could make those 2 hours of riding time connectivity time for homework. And it gets even better. Because the school system, at the end of the day, parks the buses next to some of the most remote trailer parks in town, leaving the routers on so the students who are least likely to have broadband at home get yet another way to connect. Now, I think if we are all creative, like New York and Coachella, and we're creative at the federal, state, and local level, and creative in thinking about partnerships between the public sector and the private sector, we're going to find ways to close that homework gap. I know it won't be easy, but we should go for it. And now is not a moment too soon, because this is all about the future, something I don't have to tell Project Tomorrow. And the future of our economy, our country, and our success is built on a digital and diverse workforce. We all know science, technology, engineering, and math are the fastest growing fields in the new economy. And we also know the diversity of our STEM workforce does not mirror the diversity of our population. It's time to fix this and make our kids, all of our kids, not just digital consumers, but digital creators. And there are so many things we can do to make this happen. But a small step, and one we can take right now, is to make it possible for all students to do their homework. Because the homework gap is the cruelest part of our new digital divide, but it is within our power to bridge it. So thank you, Julie. Thank you for your report, and thank you to everyone here for what you do for kids, technology, and education. And thank you all for being patient.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Wonderful having you here, and once again, thank you for your leadership.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Well, as Jessica shared with us, this is a very important issue, and it's also an imperative that we do apply new innovative thinking to this. And so it is part of our goal at Project Tomorrow to be able to share our data so that it can inform those type of innovative new policies and programs. And I loved all the examples that Jessica shared with us. Wonderful examples that we can possibly replicate in other schools and communities. Okay, so with that, we're going to move on here and hear a little bit from our panel of experts that I have here with me, and then we are going to move into some of the data findings. So first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have our panelists introduce themselves. So students, if it's okay with you, what I'd like to have you do is just say your first name and what grade you are in. Okay? Nia, could you help us by starting? I think so. Try it.
Yeah. Oh, okay, that works.
Your name and your grade.
My name is Nia.
Just your first name.
My name is Nia. I'm in 3rd grade.
Thank you. I think it's good.
My name is Tenda, and I'm in 5th grade.
5th grade.
My name is Royale, and I'm in the 6th grade.
My name is Darrell, and I'm in 6th grade.
Thank you. And these students are here from Baltimore's Empowerment Academy. Okay, Andrea?
Is it on?
I think it's on.
My name is Andrea, and I'm from 8th grade.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Mohammed, and I'm in 8th grade.
Hi, my name is Allure, and I'm a senior.
Okay, wonderful. So we sort of have our older students on this side and our younger students on this side. So we'll see if we see any differences here in the data findings from all of them. Okay, but I want to get to know them a little bit more before we start sharing some of our Speak Up data. So what I'm going to do, students, is I'm going to ask you just some questions, okay? You don't need to answer, so you don't need the microphones for this. I'm going to ask you some questions. If it's true for you, if when I ask you the question, you would answer yes to it, just raise your hand, okay? So some of these are easier than others. So do you use technology in school? Raise your hand, okay? Do you like using technology at school? Okay. Do any of you have a smartphone that you use at school? Okay. Do any of you have a tablet that you use at school? Okay. How about a laptop? Have a laptop? Yeah, somewhat. Okay. Do you use technology at home to help you with homework? Okay. Do you use online textbooks, digital textbooks? Some do, some not. Are any of you on Twitter? Okay. This side of the room. Instagram? Okay. Vine? Okay, well, again, this side of the room, very interesting. Who likes science? Anybody like science? Everybody likes science. How about that? How about math? Yeah, everybody likes math. I've never met these students before in my life. Don't feel like it's a staged group. Anyone here interested in going into a science or math or engineering or technology field in the future, maybe for a job or career? Okay, so we'll talk about that as we go on. Okay, so as we can see, we have some differences of opinion here. We have some different types of students. Students have had some different types of learning environments. What we're going to talk about today, and it's featured in the report, are the varieties of different types of digital learning environments. In particular, today we're going to talk a little bit about mobile learning, online and blended learning, and STEM learning environments. Again, not to the detail that's in the report, but just to give you a little bit of a glimpse, and then we'll also get some feedback from the students themselves. So we've already met our students. So let's get into talking about mobile learning. So every year we poll K-12 students on their personal access to different types of mobile devices. Do they have a smartphone? Do they have a tablet at home they can use? Do they have a laptop? Do they even have something like a digital reader, maybe a Nook or a Kindle? And so it's been interesting to document that over the last couple of years. And one of the key things that we have seen is that increasingly students don't have just one of these. In fact, as our students told us, they have multiples. They may have a smartphone and they may also have a laptop, or they may have a tablet and also have a laptop. So that idea of combinations of things is a difference that we've seen since we've been polling since 2003. To get to some of the points that Jessica brought up, we also see increasingly that students tell us that they are using those mobile devices to access the internet. So whereas we still have some work to do on home broadband access, sort of the relief or the alternative is that students are using their mobile devices. However, we do continue to see, even outside of the students that don't have a mobile device and the students that don't have broadband access, there is a percentage of students that tell us that their only access is at school. Now, what we did for this year's survey is that we asked students about their access to different types of devices in school, whether they were using their own personal device, whether they had been provided with a tablet, whether they'd been provided with a school tablet, or possibly even a Chromebook as a new alternative. And then what we did is we disaggregated all the data to see if there was differences between those students that had a mobile device as opposed to students that didn't have that sort of computing capability in their hands. Now, I know that our friends are here from Key Middle School. Now, students, you have a tablet or a laptop?
Laptop.
Laptop that you've been given. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to that as well. We asked the students on the survey to tell us about the types of things that they were doing using their devices. And this is a slide that compares the students that were given a tablet, students that were given a laptop, students that were given a Chromebook, with students who told us that they did not have access on a regular basis to any of those devices. And so as you can see here, and it's documented in the report as well, students that had access to a mobile device were actually doing much more, and not only more from a quantity standpoint, also more sophisticated things using those devices than the students that maybe still had to walk down the hall to a computer lab or didn't have that sort of regular access. We also found that amongst the students in particular that were provided with their school with a laptop, either school with a laptop or with a tablet, they had different views on what was the best devices to use. Now, we know that familiarity sometimes breeds affinity, not always contempt, but in fact affinity. And so we see that actually the students in the survey poll that had been provided with school-provided tablets were actually more likely in many ways to say the tablet was the best device for them to use. Students that had laptops tended to think the laptop was the best device. However, there were some differences. In certain things, even the students that had tablets felt that a laptop was a better product, most notably in terms of taking online tests. They felt that for online tests, they would rather have a laptop than a tablet. Now, when we talk, though, about social media or communications, the students were in universal agreement that that's where their smartphone is really their preferred device. Now, of course, that may come from personal familiarity more than from a school environment. Speaking about social media, and we asked the students about some of their social media access, we did a pretty extensive polling this year on students' use of different types of social media tools, whether that's Instagram or the increasing number of students that are on Twitter. In some cases, they are not just on Twitter from a personal entertainment or relationship standpoint. They may be following their teacher on Twitter or following different experts from a learning environment on Twitter as well. The largest social media that we saw students were using, though, was YouTube, almost universal use of YouTube. In fact, when we asked students the frequency of their use, everything from all the time to never, only 4% of middle school students told us they were never on YouTube. That's really amazing in terms of thinking about it, particularly because YouTube is only 10 years old. We know that students are playing games, and we also have been chronicling this for the last couple of years. The continuing decrease of students' interest in Facebook in particular from its high point in 2007. As I was telling some folks just a couple of weeks ago, I think the death knell, at least from most students, for Facebook was when grandma got on Facebook. Mom and teacher was bad enough, but when grandma started checking out the photos, then we knew it was time to move on. The other thing that was interesting in the data this year that was new is over the last couple years when we've asked students about the obstacles that they face using technology, the two that always came up on top was I am not allowed to use my own mobile device in school, and those blank, blank, blank school filters and firewalls prevent me from getting to the sites that I need. Folks, we had a major change this year because what students are telling us is their biggest obstacle, their pain point, is they cannot access their social media. And it's the idea that their social media is totally integrated into their lives and they want to be able to access that at school. Now, the downgrading of the other two may also be the result of schools changing policy and letting students use their own mobile devices. And also, unfortunately, as students bring mobile devices into school, quite often they're coming in with their own network as well. And so they no longer are as concerned about the school filters and firewalls. And then finally, a very interesting question we asked this year. We asked all the students, how important is it for students to have access to a mobile device to use at school? And across the board, 3/4 of middle school and high school students in particular told us they thought it was important. Administrators even ranked it higher than the students themselves. So let's get into a little bit of conversation here with our students. And as I said, I've got some questions for them. We're going to save some time at the end for your questions, but I'm going to have a couple questions to get their voice into this conversation before we move on to online and blended learning. So I know several of you use mobile devices at school. Is there anyone here, and that might be a laptop, it might be a tablet, whatever that might be, would any of you like to share with us an example of how you use your mobile devices at school? What type of things you do? Mohammed, go ahead.
So, in algebra, my class, we use our smartphone for Reminder 101. It's an app, and you need to get a class code, and the class code is connected to the teacher's phone. And when they write a text message, it comes to your phone and tells you to do your homework when it's due and when project is
Very
due.
interesting. Okay, very interesting. Anyone have another example? Go ahead, Laura.
So since I'm a senior, we have a senior thesis at Cesar Chavez, and what we have to do is we have a Google Docs, which is part of Gmail, and so we write in our Google Docs, and our teacher grades our work online, so we can get feedback during class or after class when we go home, so we can work on it when we go home, and things like that.
So it's totally online then, Lori, right?
Yes.
So you're not passing papers back and forth to the teacher at all?
No, he'll give us a rubric on a piece of paper, but oftentimes he'll email us the rubric in our email as well, and we'll type our paper online, and then he'll grade it from there.
Great. And Lori, do you like that type of learning environment? Has that been efficient or effective for you?
Yes, I think it's more beneficial because, like, you can work on your own time. Like, you can go home and do it whenever you please, and it'll always be with you because it's in your email.
Okay, that's a good benefit. Andrea?
In my English classes, we have Google Classroom, and they send us an email every time we get a new assignment, and we can, if we want to, we can start earlier than the class, which I like because I like to be ahead of the class, and we do that. And sometimes, like, they will send us, like, the teachers will send us an email saying, like, oh, you have to elaborate more on this, and you could check it, and it has like they highlight it, and other right now we're doing literature circles,
Okay.
and we are a lot of students can get into one page to write at the same time.
Okay. That sounds really good. I like to get ahead too, so I would be right there with you. Yes, go ahead, Royal.
In our math class, for tests, we use Agile Mind, and it's easy because the computer checks it immediately when you finish.
Oh, so then you know if you've answered the math problems right or wrong? Mm-hmm. Can you go back and then change it?
No.
No, you can't, but... Sorry, Royal. But you do know how you're doing.
Yes.
Okay, Daryl?
We use same thing as Royale said, Eldramad. It's like we can go home and we can go over like how we can like our units, like right now we doing like graphs, and so we can study it online and give us a better understanding of how we are doing our work.
So Darrell, tell me, do you think it's better, this type of a learning environment is better for you?
Yes, I do. I think it's better
Do you know why? Do you have an idea why?
because I think the next generation will take over, and I think everybody will be using it, and I think it's much easier than looking at a textbook or just looking on a piece of paper.
Okay, all right, so we've got lots of follow-on questions here, folks. We're right into it, which is really interesting. So you saw up there, you may have noticed that I shared some research of what students have told us that they think it's really important for other students to have access to mobile devices, tablets, laptops that they can use in school. What does my panel think? Do you think that's an important part of a learning experience today? Nia, do you have a thought on that?
Okay, it works. I think that we should use tablets because my teacher, she lets us bring our tablets in class. So we also use this game on the tablet if we bring it, and it's like a math game, so they can help us with our multiplication, division, and fractions.
Oh, that's hard stuff. Do you think it's helped you, Nia, with your
Yes.
multiplication, division, and fractions?
Yes.
Do you like the game?
Yes.
Okay, we'll get back to that game because I think there's more story there. What'd you have? Okay, so what I'm going to do now is we're going to move ahead, panelists. We're going to talk a little bit about online and blended learning, and then I'm going to come back and ask you some more questions. So don't go anywhere. Stay with me here. In terms of online learning, and in the report, we look specifically at blended and also at virtual, though earlier this year we released a very special report with the Flip Learning Network on Flip Learning, so you can also find that report as a separate standalone. We provided the students and the teachers, as well as the parents, with the definition of blended learning, and my friend Jonathan is here from iNACOL, and we did leverage some of the good work that iNACOL has done in terms of definitions around this. But when we provide the definition to the students in middle school and high school, almost 2/3 of them said that that sounded like a good way for them to learn. So a nice endorsement of blended learning. from students that are not necessarily in that environment. However, we went further and took a look at about the quarter of students, middle school and high school students, that told us that they were in a blended learning environment of some kind, to be able to understand what that experience was for them individually, to be able to share that. It was also really interesting for us, though we didn't pull out elementary students that were in blended learning to look at some of their use of digital content as maybe an indication of the type of learning environment that they were having. It also, we thought, was really impressive that when we provided administrators with the list of different types of innovative digital learning solutions that were out there today, the top 3 that came right up on top for district administrators really revolve around this idea of blended and online learning. Digital content, online digital textbooks, and then all the variety of blended learning models as the ones that they think were already having high levels of academic achievement results. Now, when we took a look at the students that were living and learning in a blended learning environment, we also noticed that those students had very high comments about the value of the blended learning experience. In particular, they liked the opportunity where they were in control of their own learning, where they could learn at their own pace. They felt that they were actually achieving a better understanding of the content. It was helping them develop the types of college and career-ready skills that they were looking for. And in fact, they even told us that they felt in that type of a learning environment, comparatively to what they were in before, they were spending more time doing homework, more time really helping to master their skills and the knowledge that they had. In addition to that, we saw, and this is something that was really of particular interest to us, that the students that were in blended learning environments were actually extending that blended experience outside of school. So they were tapping into a variety of different types of technologies to advance their learning from a self-directed learning standpoint around areas of interest that they had. Now, from a fully online experience, and we also polled and examined some of the students that were in fully online classes or virtual schools, we took a look at it in a couple different perspectives. One was from a policy perspective. So we asked students in general, as well as students that were in virtual schools, as well as parents and administrators, a policy question around a requirement for students to take a fully online class as a high school graduation requirement. We actually had asked that question a couple years ago, and so wanted to bring it back and take another look at it. So as you can see there, parents and district administrators are very bullish on that particular type of a policy. Now, lots of districts have already implemented that, as well as some states have implemented it. We also thought it was a nice statement about the value of their education, that 55% of students in virtual schools felt that that should be a requirement for all students to have the type of learning experience that they're having as well. And when we ask students about their interest in taking a fully online class, we actually find that middle school students are more interested than high school students. I think it's that idea of the high school students saying, and maybe, or Lori could comment on this, my schedule is already really full, don't give me anything else that I need for graduation. But we saw that across the board they were interested in a wide range of different topics, including also computer programming and coding. The one that really struck us as a particularly fascinating data point is this little one that's down at the end, where we asked the students, would you prefer to take all of your classes online? For high school students in 2013, 8% of students said, you know what, I would raise my hand for that. I think that might be really interesting. This year it jumped to 24%. So an indication not only of increased interest, but also more awareness, and I think it's also a statement about the increasing quality of the virtual learning experience for students. So let me take this now back to our panel. I have a couple different questions for them. I know that we, in our initial polling, asked about digital textbooks, and that came up here in our data as well. So are some of you using some types of digital textbooks, online textbooks, e-textbooks? They may be called different things in your school, and can you tell us a little bit about those? Mohammed, are you interested? Yeah, okay.
All right, so we use our online textbooks in civics, and our teacher will assign us pages to read. And then with the pages, they have videos and games for you to practice on and watch. And to me, I like it because when you watch the videos and like play games, it makes it more interesting to learn instead of like listening to the teacher talk for 1 hour and 30 minutes. Yeah.
So this is, we'll skip over that comment about the teacher talking. That's for the next briefing. But Mohammed, if you don't mind, a follow-up question. So this is not just the print textbook online. It actually has, you said, games and videos embedded in that.
Yes.
So could you give us an example of a type of video? Do you remember any of the videos within your civics textbook that you've looked at? No. No, okay. The video thing is particularly interesting, not only because I mentioned the YouTube data, but students across the board are telling us that they really like that inclusion of videos that bring the real world into their perspective. Does anyone have any examples? Okay, Tendai.
Sometimes I use like workbooks at home
Okay.
because when we have Wordly Wise and we had to do a review on a packet, and I already threw it away because I didn't know we still had to keep it. But when didn't know we were supposed to, I didn't know we were supposed to throw it away, so I have to go on the Wordly Wise website to look at the words and their definitions to be able to go with my work.
Oh, very good. And do you think that that's helped you with your words?
Yes,
You think you have a bigger vocabulary because of that?
yes.
Okay, I do too. Anyone else have some other examples of some games or some videos that they have? Andrea?
In my algebra class, we use Khan Academy, and they have, it's like, we have like a connected learning in my class. So she gave us a code and we're included in her class. And she makes it more like a game, because like you have like review packets about like each part of the class, and then when you go in, they give you points for each like question you get right, and you can get like different avatars and stuff like that. And at the end of like the month or something, she puts it up on the board, like the scoreboard, and the person that like gets them, like improves the most, she gives them like, I don't know, like they give her like extra points or something, so they can get ahead.
And do you think that's a good way to motivate you?
Yeah, cause yeah, it's like it's fun because you get to like in my class we have a lot of fun because like sometimes sometimes we're like, oh, we're gonna do more problems than you so we get more points, so we learn more at the same time, and it's fun. And they also include videos. If you don't understand something, in the side they have, if you want to watch a video on YouTube, you can watch it. So it's fun.
Good. So do any of you, I've got two follow-up questions. Did you have another point? No, okay. Do any of you ever go, we had that statistic up about YouTube, so I'm just sort of interested in this. Do you ever go to YouTube to learn how to do something? Oh, some of you do that? Okay, what did you learn how to do, Mohammed? No, you don't want to tell us? Okay, don't want to tell us. All right. Is there anyone that's gone to YouTube to learn how to do something? Nia? What did you learn how to do?
What? Oh, okay. One time when I was at home and I didn't know what to do, I went on YouTube and it was for homework. I didn't know how to, we do vertical, like, it's vertical multiplication by double numbers, like 36 times 54. So I didn't know how to do that. So I went on YouTube and I searched up how to multiply double fraction, how to multiply the numbers, and I learned how to do that, so now I already know how to do it.
Well, that's great. So 36 times 54, that sounds really hard.
I know it.
Was it hard? Yeah. Tendai?
Sometimes I go on YouTube because sometimes I don't understand stuff that my teacher shows me. So like I type in like what I'm learning and it shows me different ways to do it.
And that's because Maybe you didn't understand the first time when your teacher shared it with you? Okay, that's good. Darrell?
I use YouTube for like if I don't know how to multiply fractions or subtract them, I'll go on YouTube and look up some videos and that will help me and really do. And plus, you can use it for outside school stuff like if you need to learn how to tie a tie or tie shoes or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, you can use YouTube to learn how to do that.
I bet there's lots of people that have gone on YouTube to learn how to tie a tie. That's good to know. Fabulous. Oh, Andrea.
I really enjoy doing hair. Like, so I go on YouTube and like I search up like different hairstyles and then I try to do them and on my mom or my little sister. and I think that kind of helps me because it distracts me a little bit, but still I'm learning something.
That's right. That's right. Well, one of the themes of this year's report was that learning is a 24/7 enterprise for today's students, and it covers a broad range of different types of topics, whether things that you are personally interested in or things that are tied into your homework. So I think you're right. I think that is part of the learning experience. Okay. Yes. Oh, Lori.
I also think that like when learning online and things like with videos, it's like from a different perspective because there are different ways to learn. Like for instance, math, there's different ways to do certain problems. So say you didn't get how the teacher taught it in class, there's other professors online who teach it in a different way. So that's why I think that learning online is more beneficial as well.
Yes. Mohammed.
Last year, my history teacher will give us a homework packet or like paper to take notes on, and she'll make her own videos. And with that videos, we'll watch it and take notes on, and it'll help us with our homework. And I feel like it's better when they make their own, because like you're used to with them teaching, and if you ever like need to go back and learn about it, you could always go on YouTube because it's always there. Yeah.
That's great. Yes, we've heard that from other students as well, and then we got applause from the audience on that. I wonder who from. Wonderful. All right, students, I'm going to move on to our final section of data that I'm going to share, and then we'll end up with a couple questions for you, and then we'll open it up to the audience. So audience, if you could start thinking about your questions. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about the STEM learning environments. I want to share with you some really provocative data that we have from this year about STEM learning, and then talk to you about how we took a deep dive into students that are learning in STEM-intensive environments and what their perspective was on some things. So every year for the last about 8 or 9 years, we've been asking students about their interest in going into a STEM career field. This is disaggregated by girls and boys. Many of us have been talking about the gender gap in terms of girls' interests, though I don't always know that the data has been there to substantiate that. So if we see here, and this is amongst high school students, if we look at, there's about 12 percentage point differential between girls and boys who say they are very interested in going into a STEM field. I think the most interesting part of this is that somewhat interested category. About a third of students say that they are somewhat interested. When I do focus groups specifically on that, those students tell me that they are interested in STEM, but they don't know enough about it. They have a lot of questions. They're not sure they have the right skills to be successful. That group also happens to be disproportionately a large minority group of students that haven't had that type of learning experience. Now, the other thing we did this year that was interesting was that with all of the national interest in students learning computer programming and coding, we asked students about their interest in being part of an after-school or in-school computer programming or coding class. And then we disaggregated that by gender and grade. Folks, what we see here is that 2/3 of our upper elementary students, so our elementary students here, this is girls specifically, say they would be interested in a computer programming or coding class. A little bit, around 50%, as you can see, middle school girls said they were interested. And then it drops off to only about 1/3 of high school girls say they are interested. So as we think about coding and computer programming as sort of an entree point to a STEM career. It's very interesting to take a look at this and see that decline really starts at the high point in elementary school and then declines in high school. So many of the programs, fabulous programs that are out there to teach computer programming to girls in high school and some in middle school may be missing the sweet spot of interest for nurturing that sustained interest, which really appears to be more elementary school girls. Now, as I said, we took a deep dive into students that were having different types of STEM learning experience. So we looked at students that were in targeted STEM academies, specific types of middle school and high schools that were focused in on STEM topic areas. We also looked at students that were part of a student tech support team. There's lots of those around the country that provide tech support to their schools, or students that were in some type of a computer programming or coding activity, as well as all students. And one of the things that came out of this data, and there's much more of this data that's in the report, of course, is that in fact the students that were in these type of STEM-intensive activities actually turned out to be the highest level of self-directed learners. Learners that were tapping into digital technologies outside of school because they had a passion or an interest around that particular area. And so we thought that was very interesting as well. So really two big questions that came out of our report this year for consideration, for further thought, for further discussion. Hopefully maybe you can even engage with us on Twitter on this, is we're really interested in seeing about how do we just support a new type of education ecosystem that takes advantage of the fact that even as we've learned from the students here today, learning is a 24/7 enterprise. So how do we marry the informal and the formal learning world together so that they are not siloed, but that they're really addressing the way students are looking at their learning lives? And then the second thing is how do we enable and empower more student-centric digital learning, along the lines of what we saw coming from the students that are in mobile learning environments, blended learning environments, fully virtual learning environments, and also STEM environments. So as I said, I have a couple more questions for my fabulous panel here, and then we're going to open it up. Nia, do you want to come back up? Come on. Come back up. Okay, so I was very impressed, I'm sure you all were too, that all of the students, if I remember from the beginning of our program, you all said that you liked science and math. Mm-hmm. Several of you said that you might be interested in going into a STEM career field. So can any of you tell us about a particularly interesting or engaging or one that really meant a lot to you from a science or math lesson or activity that you did at school that really got you motivated to like science and math? Is there anything in particular that you've done in school that would point you in that direction? Yes, Royal.
Well, recently in science class, we did this thing called Project Astro, and it was like two employees from Hubble that work with NASA. They came to our classroom, wow, and they kind of told us about all of the jobs that you can get with the space station, and we found out that there are a lot of things with like art and technology other than just like making spaceships or whatever, and telescopes.
Yeah. So are you more interested in that type of work now?
Yes.
Oh, very good. Okay, Tendai.
I think over spring break, we had to do a project on the solar system, and we had to create our own planet. And I started liking science after that project because I learned a lot about all the planets, and I didn't know that Pluto isn't called Pluto anymore. It's just a number now.
I know. Isn't that sad? So you think you're more interested in planets now? What was it about that particular activity that got you more interested in science, do you think?
Because at first, when I was going to research my project, I thought it was just going to be boring. And once I started researching, I found a lot of interesting things about the planets. Like, I thought that Mars was the hottest planet, but it's really not.
It's not? Oh, I think I knew that, thought that too. We're going to have to talk afterwards. I got to get up on my planets. Yes, Nia?
Something happened at my old...
Yeah, you can talk about that.
At my old school, my teacher, this was for science, and we all got to do it. She took it like, you know how those guys used to deliver milk bottles to your doorstep?
Long time ago.
Yeah, she had one of those milk bottles and they were empty, and she had an egg, and she had a match. So when you take the match, you light it and throw it in the milk bottle and put the egg on top of it. The air from the milk bottle lets the egg slide through it.
No.
And then the egg is in the milk bottle. Because at first, before you do that, the egg can't get in the milk bottle.
No. That sounds crazy. But that made you think better about science?
Yes.
So are you interested in doing something maybe in science?
Yes.
Okay. What do you think you want to do, Nia? Do you know?
No.
Okay. You have a little time. You're in 3rd grade.
Yay.
Any other thoughts over here about a science or math activity that was particularly compelling? No, I'm getting nothing over here. Is there anything, this is a question I love to ask students, and it might be really interesting for our audience as well, and then I'm going to open it up to all of you. Quite often I do hear from students that they are possibly interested in science or math, but they don't think that their teachers or their schools are really creating those sort of engaging opportunities for them. In many cases, they're just learning out of a textbook or just doing standard experiments. What recommendations would you have for your teachers or for your schools or for other teachers or other schools to make science or math more interesting? And Andrea just looks like she's dying to share with us. Go ahead.
I think a good idea would be like more hands-on activities. Because if you're a visual learner, especially doing it yourself, you can like learn more about like how you do it. And sometimes my teacher starts talking and like explaining stuff, and I don't understand at all. But then when we get to the activity, I'm like, oh, that's how you do it.
So that's really good that you understand the way you learn best. And so I think that's probably true of a lot of students, that they would rather have some hands-on activities. Yes, Tenda.
I think we should go on more science field trips.
Okay.
Because we went on a field trip for technology with Miss Brunson, and and there was a 3D printer there, and then we watched a video of how in the future that they're gonna 3D print like body parts, and they're gonna put it in your body, like if you don't have that body part.
That's really interesting. Darrell?
In the future, I just in like a couple months ago, I heard that Microsoft is coming out with HoloLens, so it can project holograms. And I think in the future, I think they should make that in schools so we can have a better understanding how in science, like 3D figures, we should like see how the first spaceship looks like or something like that.
All right, good. Royale?
It would be nice, like, if the art teacher and the technology teacher and then the science teacher could all, like, team up for, like, one like activity, because like I said, Project Astro was kind of cool, and it kind of got us thinking about how like arts are incorporated with science too.
Yeah.
And a lot of people in my class like would like to learn how to code, and that would be cool too.
Yeah. Okay, good.
I kind of agree with him because, like, in science and math, some of the topics overlap. So I think that math and science teachers should work together to, like, teach things at the same time. So, like, the math, like, some of the math type of things that we're going to be doing in science, we use them together. So, like, they integrate. So I think they should try to teach them at the same pace so we wouldn't have to, like, backlapse on, like, old things that we learned a long time ago in math, and we have to relearn all over again because we forgot the concept.
All good recommendations. These are fabulous recommendations. Oh, Nia, do you have a point? Yes?
I think, like, in my classroom, we don't really do any science.
Okay.
We don't do science, but we only do science, like, in the beginning of the year, because for the beginning of the year, and we did like simple things because we didn't even do any experiments. We just read about it.
So would you like to do more experiments?
Yes.
Okay, good. So what I'm going to do now, fabulous answers. I love all the recommendations, and that's the wonderful thing of having this video stream, because we can go back and look at these recommendations and share them out. But what I want to do now is open this up to the audience in case you have some questions. I am going to repeat the questions that you're asking so that we make sure that we get them out to our virtual audience as well. And so does anyone have a question? Yes, sir.
Hi, my name's Rob Mahaffey, and I'm with the Rural School and Community Trust, which represents the 12 million rural kids that live all across our country, and many of them live in very remote, poor places. So my question for the students, have you used technology in your classrooms to connect with other classrooms across the country for instruction? Teamed up teachers and had other classrooms in real time to learn together with other classes?
Great question. So the question was for the students, have you had any sort of opportunities or activities in your class where you've had the opportunity to connect with other students that are not in your school or in your class, maybe in other locations? What did you do and how was that experience? Mohammed.
In French class, each quarter we do PALs. In PALs, we do Skype with people from France. And with that, they teach us some French, and we'll teach them some English. And then we do it every once a quarter. Yeah.
And so is it always with the same class, Mohammed?
No, we usually change
It
out,
up a little
yeah.
bit? Okay, all right. Lori?
So since I'm in AP Calculus, and since we're preparing for the AP Calculus test coming up, they provided like a little website where you can talk to college students and like they can help you out with certain problems or things that you need help on to prepare yourself for the AP Calculus test. And I think it's more beneficial because like it's not an adult trying to teach you, it's somebody who's not your age but around your age group, so they can explain to you in a way that they understand and maybe benefit you.
Once again, having that other perspective. Lori, I didn't realize that you were getting ready for your AP exams, of course, so even more kudos to you for joining us today, because I'm sure you'd rather be studying. Daryl?
In guidance class, we Skyped this other school, and we was reading the books with each other. And after we done reading the book, we write how the book was to the other school, and we send it to the other school, and they send our buddy or something like that to us, and we read how they like the book or something like that.
Oh, very interesting. And did you like that experience?
Yeah.
Where was the other school? Do you remember?
No, I don't remember. We only Skyped one time.
Oh, you only did the Skype one time. Okay. Andrea?
Last year we did like in Skype. It was like a ghost Skype. We did it to another school, and the whole class used to be in the Skype. We used to send each other's videos, and we had to guess like where they were and where we were. And each time we did a video, we gave them a hint, and then at the end we saw who won.
And that was fun? I'd like to do that too. Another question from the audience? Eric?
My name is Eric Moore from Time Roots Foundation. We do STEM activities with kids. So I'm curious, for those of you that have a smartphone, think about it as this. Are you allowed to use a smartphone in class, at school? And if so, how do you use it? Is it helpful? If you're not allowed to use it in class or in school, do you think it would be helpful for you? Just your thoughts on using a smartphone in school.
So the question is about a smartphone. Are you allowed to use it in school? Would you like to use it in school? How would it be helpful? Andrea?
It depends on the class and the teacher. Some teachers like us to like be engaged on how they talk and what they say. Other teachers like to more online stuff, so they're more like updated, we could say. And yeah, we have like half an hour each day to read, and our advisory teachers let us read on our phones, and sometimes they check on us because some people go on like social media, so it depends on the teacher and the class mostly.
Okay. Other thoughts on smartphone?
I'll go. For the most part, no. But I think it would be beneficial sometimes. But then again, I don't think it would be that beneficial because being a teenager, we're not going to just be on what we need to be on.
Yeah.
So, like, I think it's going to get us distracted to be on our own mobile device.
Okay. Mohammed?
I use my smartphone as my agenda because right now it's like SOL's time, and you stressed out a lot. You forget like what homework you're supposed to do, so I usually write it down on my smartphone, and when I get home, it reminds me so I can do my homework and
So
not be
you're
stressed
using
out.
that smartphone as your organizer.
Yes.
To keep you organized. Andrea?
My mom makes me have like a time to do my homework. So every time I have a homework assignment, I put on my alarm. So every time my alarm rings, the homework assignments come up. And I think that's really helpful for me.
Does that keep you better organized? Okay. Nia? Do you have a smartphone?
Kind of. Well, my teacher, she doesn't let us use our phones in class. So, like, when we walk into the classroom, she has this bin or box, and she tells us to take our phones out and put it in the box, and she keeps it on her desk. But I think it will help us because our screen and projector doesn't work. So if we need to see a video on something that we're learning, we could just look it up on like YouTube or something.
Yeah, on the phone. Yeah. Royal?
In language arts class, we use the laptops a lot, but the laptops, they're like, they really don't work a lot of times. Like, they're really, really slow. And sometimes the card that we use, people don't charge them, so they end up dying on us. And they do like Windows updates like 24/7, so we barely get to use them. So like sometimes, and this is like only in language arts class, Miss Hanisike, our teacher, she'll let us use our iPods sometimes, or phones or whatever, if we need to like find an article online or whatever.
Good. Well, that was interesting about the smartphone. Oh, more comments here. We've opened up a can of worms, Eric. Yes, Andrea.
I agree with him because yesterday in my science class, we had to go in and do like a project in the computer, and I logged in 6 computers and none of them worked. So they were like either updating or the internet didn't work or there was no login service. I just gave up and went to another friend's computer.
Mohammed?
Our teachers love using the computers, but the computers are really slow. And when we log in, it takes at least like 10 minutes to get logged in and get ready. And it wastes time, because with that 10 minutes, we could have been doing something. And teachers get stressed out because we have this thing, like if you can't log in 3 times, it locks you out for 15 minutes or an hour. And yeah, it's really stressful for the teachers.
It's interesting that the students brought this up. I have a point on that, but let's hear from Tendai first.
I agree with them because we had park, and when we were about to take our practice park assessment, like there's 28 students in my class, including me. So I got logged out of the computer and I couldn't get back in, and they wouldn't let me get back in. And like, since the computer's really slow, we have new computers now. It's Chrome, we have Chrome now. But before that, before our principal got us a new one, new computers, like the first graders still use those computers. We have new computers, but before our new computers, it'll usually shut down. And like when we're taking park, it kind of did that to us, but we had to get back in because it was park. But in the practice park, like out of the 28 students in the class, probably like only 4 got into the practice park assessment.
So that's a serious problem in terms of that. So for the folks that are not familiar, PARC is the online assessment, standardized assessment that many schools and districts are using to measure their Common Core competencies. So we obviously opened up a can of worms here. Thank you, Eric Moore, on the smartphone conversation, and everyone had a voice on that. It's very interesting. In the Speak Up data, what we find is that students' preference is to use their own device because it is personalized for them. Plus, students often will tell us, I don't know if it's the case here, that they feel that their devices are newer and have better functionality than the devices that are being provided to them by their school. And so that's where we see that differential, is quite often the students' preferences for their own device. Unfortunately, we have run out of time for our Q&A, so I would like to have you thank my fabulous panel for sharing all of their wonderful insights and wisdom. It is for this reason, folks, that we continue to do the Speak Up surveys every year so that we can bring forth these exact types of authentic views and hopefully change perspectives. So please not only share the report with your colleagues, but please continue to use it as a reference. Look for upcoming news on tomorrow.org about the upcoming briefings, as well as Speak Up 2015 that'll open up in the fall. I do want to thank my partners that are still here and our wonderful sponsors for all of their attention and continued friendship around Speak Up. Of course, want to thank Senator Murray and also Commissioner Rosenworcel for being here with us as well today. So we'll hang around for a little bit. If you've got a burning question that we didn't get to, that you need to have the voice of a third, a fifth, a sixth, an eighth grader, or a 12th grader give you some input on. But thank you very much for joining us today. It was great having you here.